Now, I've done a lot of videos on the importance of potassium, but I have not focused as much on sodium. So in this video, we're going to talk about the importance of salt. In fact, I'm going to give you 7 warning signs that you may be salt deficient. And of course, the biggest way you get sodium is with just salt. So we're going to be focusing on salt in this video. Why would someone be deficient in salt? Well, they don't eat salty foods, right? They're told they're salt sensitive or they have high blood pressure, so they don't consume much salt. Maybe they're going through a lot of stress. The more stress you go through, the more salt you actually need. Let's say it's hot out, right? Or you're sweating, you're going to lose salt. Now, some professional athletes that are working out hardcore in the summer can lose up to 6 grams of sodium just in 1 hour. So when we're exercising, sweating, we can lose a ton of sodium as well as chloride, right? There's some reports that show that we lose even more chlorides than we do sodium. Okay, here's another one. High amounts of potassium. Let's say you start taking a potassium electrolyte powder and you just neglect to take sodium or salt, right? Well, that's going to throw you off because anytime you look at salt or especially sodium, you want to look at it in a balanced state, okay? Not as an individual mineral, because when you increase the opposing mineral that's usually connected with it, like potassium, you can actually increase it or decrease it depending on what you do to potassium. For example, if someone is salt sensitive, what that really means is they're low in potassium. So here's the problem. If someone doesn't know that, they're going to start reducing their sodium more and more and more and generate all these side effects that I'm going to talk about. What they should do instead is just beef up the other mineral. It's much better to have sufficient amounts of both minerals, but in the right ratio. But anytime we go up with potassium, we need more salt. Anytime we go up with salt, we need more potassium. Okay, you started the ketogenic diet. Ketones are like diuretics, okay? You're going to lose a lot of water. And when you lose the water, you're going to lose your salt and you're going to lose your potassium. So you need both of these things to be put back into the body. Now, what about fasting? Yeah, well, you're not eating anything. You're drinking a lot of water. You shouldn't be drinking anything when you're fasting, but you should be consuming sea salt for sure if you are fasting, simply because our bodies require as an essential nutrient sodium and chloride, or you're going to have these symptoms, which I'm getting to shortly. Now, if you drink coffee, let's say you drink 4 cups of coffee in a day, you'll lose a half a teaspoon of salt because caffeine depletes sodium, which is interesting. Maybe you want to add a little salt in your coffee. I've heard that that will actually reduce some of the bitterness. Okay, drinking too much water. I've done videos just on this topic. If you haven't seen those, this would conflict with what you've been taught, that we need to drink a lot of water. Everyone knows this. But the question is, what happens when we drink too much water? Well, guess what? We're going to flush out the electrolytes, especially sodium chloride. There's people that have even died by drinking too much water. It's called hyponatremia because you're diluting sodium. So you want to drink when you're thirsty, and there's no problem drinking a good amount. Just make sure you also add the sea salt with it. Okay, so these are the reasons why someone's deficient. The key is balancing your salt instead of just restricting your salt or adding more salt. Make sure you add the opposing mineral potassium. If you're salt sensitive, add potassium. What does salt do? Well, it regulates your fluids. It helps you make hydrochloric acid because sodium chloride makes hydrochloric acid. Okay, so if you're low in HCl, let's say you have heartburn or indigestion especially, you might need to beef up your salts. Okay, maintains pH, okay, the acid alkaline levels. It's involved in the sodium potassium pump, which is in every single cell in the body. And that is the generator pump for energy for the nerve muscle connection. Okay, very important, as well as just generating energy. Helps glucose absorption. And lastly, it helps hydrate you. An average person needs between 1 and 2 teaspoons of sea salt a day. Now, that's a very rough figure because this does not take in consideration how much sweating or exercise you do. But this is definitely a minimum right through in here. Okay, the symptom. Number 1 symptom is weakness in your muscles. If you're deficient in salt, you're just going to feel weak, lethargy. You're going to lose that get up and go. dizzy, especially if you get up too fast, because usually your blood pressure is too low. So low blood pressure means you need more sea salt. Insomnia could be low salt in your diet. So if you have insomnia, you should try this tonight. Just put a little bit of salt, maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon, in maybe a half a glass of water, mix it up good, and about, I don't know, an hour and a half before bed, slug it down. See if you sleep better. Headache, okay, that can be a sign that you need more salt. Muscle cramps, and you have a low tolerance to heat. So you're out in the heat, you're out in the sun, and you can't tolerate it, right? Some people have an intolerance to cold, but other people have a low tolerance to heat. That means you just need some sea salt. Now, I want to show you this right here. This is interesting. Of course, you already know this, that sea salt is better than table salt, right? I don't need to go into that. But what is sea salt? Sea salt is concentrated seawater. And an average sea salt is between 98 to 99.8% sodium chloride. That only leaves you with 0.2 to 2% of the minerals and the trace minerals that are left, okay? But I want to bring up a chart on a product that I recommend, that I actually take. I put it on my food, that is very different than regular sea salt, okay? It's called Baja Gold sea salt, and I put a link down below. And what's unique about this sea salt is it has 77.5% sodium chloride, which leaves room for a lot of other minerals and trace minerals. In fact, it leaves 22.5% room for all these other minerals. So now look at the other ones down below. Like True Salt is 99.9, Cargill Purified Sea Salt Untreated is 99.9, Morton's Natural Sea Salt 99.9. But there's other ones that are lower in sodium chloride, like the Celtic Sea Salt, which is 81.5%. Okay, that's better. And then you have Jacobson sea salt, which is 85.3%. So you can see this chart, there's a lot of sodium chloride in sea salt. But check this out, look at calcium, right? Baja Gold sea salt is 4,490 parts per million, compared to the other ones, like Celtic sea salt is only 1,500 parts per million. And look at Cargill Purified Sea Salt, it's like only 30 parts per million. Now look at potassium. 6,000 parts per million for the Baja. Then if we move down to Celtic, it's only 957. So the Baja Gold is more than 6 times the amount of potassium. But look at Jacobson sea salt, that's 438 parts per million, and Malden sea salt, which is only 181 parts per million. And look at Cargill Purified, that's zero potassium. And then check out magnesium with the Baja Gold. That's 13,200 parts per million. So if you compare it to everything else, it's way off the charts. Now the question is, how can they make salt with less sodium chloride and more minerals? Well, what's interesting about this salt is the location of where they get it, in a pristine part of the world called the Sea of Cortez. And what's interesting about that is you have the Colorado River Delta that drains into the Sea of Cortez. So we have fresh water draining into ocean water, and that dilutes the amount of sodium chloride. So you're getting all these minerals from the mountains that are flushed into this one spot, where they then capture the salt and let it dry naturally by the sun. They don't artificially dry it like a lot of other companies. And then you're left with this very unique product. It's very interesting on your food. It gives it a completely new flavor. I love the flavor. It just enhances the flavor of food, which is very different than the sea salts, which I also use as well. But some of these sea salts are just overpowering with the sodium chloride. So anyway, I just wanted to introduce you to the Baja Gold sea salt and make you aware of the various signs that can occur when you're low in sodium chloride. Now, on the flip side, potassium. That's the next video you should watch. And I put that video up right here. Check it out.